say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I am the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
All broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void live here on the Fringe FM. Also, TalkStream Live, the Paranormal Radio app, Live 365. Wherever else you're listening to this broadcast live on this Thursday night, May the 23rd, 10 o'clock on the East Coast, or I guess 15 after, whatever. I'm late, and I'll tell you why. It's all Anthony Tyler's fault. It's not my fault. We were playing zombies, and we got to level 20, and honestly, I feel bad. So I bailed out of that game for you. That's such a mind fuck, isn't it? Like, that sounds like something a parent would say, right? I did all of this for you, and look what you've done. But really, I mean, I bailed out of that game for me and you. So there might be some zombie slaying after this broadcast tonight. If you happen to have World War Z, the Aftermath, like Bryce, I know Bryce has it. If you happen to have that game, there might be some slaying afterwards, because we've developed a strategy, I think, to last all 50 rounds. I'm debating on whether this broadcast should be broadcasted 3-4 nights a week, because I'm having too much fun doing radio. So here's what I'm thinking. One music show a week, one gaming show a week, and one radio broadcast a week. You know, with a guest and stuff. That way I can hyper focus on the show, and everything has its own little segment. Right? Whatever. We got to get back into this, who gives a shit, right? We got to get back into this book, The Initiates of the Flame. We started on part 1 last night. Manly P. Hall is one of my favorites, and I think we need to finish it. But the phone lines are always open. If you want to call in, you can call in and speak your mind about what Manly P. Hall is saying. So if you're just tuning in on this show, whether you're listening live or the pre-record for the podcast, we opened the book called The Initiates of the Flame by Manly P. Hall and got all the way to, where did we leave off? The Egyptian Initiate, halfway through the Egyptian Initiate. And this book is a crusty yellow, just like I like. So I'm hoping that we'll finish it tonight. If you can support the Fringe FM, please do so. Make a donation there. You can always give YouTube stickers and whatnot. That stuff comes around every 30 days. I'll tell you this, though. If you want to donate, the best way to do it is get something for your money. Go to fringe.fm/shop or the Patreon. Become a Patreon for $10 a month. You'll get access to all the audio downloads. Grab a shirt for $20 because the super chats are the easiest way to donate and support. But I will tell you this, YouTube takes 30% of all of that. 30% is a lot. That's how much they pay car salesmen after for the profit of the car. 30%. That's a lot. So just think about that before you drop a super chat. It's not very business savvy of me to say that, but I'm looking out for you, All right. Just depends on how much you like YouTube. So we left off on the scepters of Egypt, that symbol. The three that represented the three bodies that are the tools with which are to build the temple. When they are mastered, they are living proof of our right to kingship. Because a lot of times when we talk about kingship and stuff, people immediately think, because we have a conspiracy mindset. So immediately people think government and people in power and the Illuminati. But really, what Manly P. Hall, I believe, is talking about in this text is the right to kingship over your life, to become a king over your life. What's up, Bryce? I always like Michael. He jumps in. He always wants to make sure he's the first one to say hey in chat. Are you on the road? Are you trucking tonight, brother? He says, Manly Hall stuff, very interesting. Fell asleep last night. Always being exhausted. Don't worry about that, man. See, I'm known for putting people to sleep. That's what I do. I don't even know how to take that as a compliment sometimes. Some people will say, oh, yeah, I've listened to your show. I used to listen to it all the time, and I used to listen to it to go to bed because it puts me to sleep. I'm like, oh, yeah, did you ever listen to Art Bell? And I just named some others. Yeah, I love that show. Did you fall asleep listening to that one? Oh, no. It was actually entertaining. I don't know what I'm saying. Who gives a shit, right? So let's see. Well, the powers of government over others is not really what this is about. But they did look at it that way in Egypt. So if you were going to have like the scepter and the crook and the serpent crown and all that in Egypt, you had to have been a pharaoh. To be a pharaoh, you had to know the mysteries. That's not necessarily the case in our government, in our, I guess you could say, dynasty. It's not really a dynasty, but you know what I mean. They don't have to be spiritually initiated, which I think they should be. But in Egypt, they were. They had to know all this stuff. And I think, in my opinion, that's why they lasted 3,000 years. So he goes on to say, with all his robes of state, and with the scarab upon his breast, and with the all-seeing eye above his throne, there was still nothing as precious or sacred to the ancient Egyptian priest king as the triangular girdle or apron, which was the symbol of his initiation. The apron of the ancient Egyptian carried with it the same symbolism as the Masonic apron of today. It symbolized the purification of the bodies when the seat of the lower emotions, or Scorpio, was covered by the white sheepskin of purification. Remember, the whole idea of the mysteries was built around the riddle of the Sphinx. So the four fixed signs of the zodiac, that's what that statue represents. So you got the face of a man, well, the modern one, the face of a man. I guess it's got like the tail of an ox or something, the wings of an eagle, and that's the body of an ox, the wings, tail of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and the face of a man. So Scorpio, Aquarius, I drew a blank. Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, and Leo. That's the riddle of the Sphinx to master the elements. This symbol of his purification was the most precious belonging of the ancient pharaoh, and this plan or sign worn by many others below him in rank and dignity, but equal to him in spiritual purification. This was the most precious of all things to the priest king. There he sat, written upon him in the words of the initiate, the symbols of his purification and mastery, a wise king of a wise people. And it was through these priest kings that the divine worked, for they were of the order of Melchizedek. And through them was formed that doctrine which degeneracy has not been able to entirely obliterate, which we know as the divine right of kings. The divine right because through spirituality and growth, God was able to manifest through them. They were conscious instruments in the hands of a ready writer, willing and proud to do the work of those with whom through knowledge and truth they had attuned themselves. But the time came, as in all nations, when selfishness and egotism entered the heart of the king and people alike, and slowly the hand from the great white brotherhood that fed ancient Egypt was withdrawn, and the powers of darkness transformed the land of glory into one of ruins, and the names of mighty kings were buried beneath the oblivion of degeneracy. Mighty cataclysms shook the world, and out of the land of darkness the great white brotherhood carried the chosen people into the promised land. Egypt, the land of glory, disintegrated into dust. The great temples of the pharaohs are ruins, and the temple of Isis are but broken heaps of sandstone. But what of the priest kings who labored there in the days of its glory? They are still with us, for those who were leaders before are leaders now, if they have continued to walk the path, that is. Although his scepter is gone and his priestly vestments have molded away, the priest king still walks the earth with the dignity and the power and the childish simplicity that before made him great. He no longer wears the robes of his order, although he bears no credentials. He is as much a priest king now as then, for he still bears the true insignia of his rank. The coiled serpent has given place to knowledge and love. The hand that bestows the riches of the past does little acts of kindness now. Although he no longer carries the scepter of self-mastery, still the manifests that mastery in his daily life. And although the altar fires within the temple of Karnak have long been dead, the true fire within himself still burns, and before that he still bows as he bowed in the days of Egypt, or the days of Egypt's glory. I don't know who he's talking about. I think maybe he's talking about man. He might be talking about Masons. Who knows? Winter York says, I usually listen to you on Spotify at work because your show isn't, Isn't dooley? I don't know what that means. I can't read very well either. Your show isn't dull. Okay. It says something different on the screen. I rarely am able to listen live. Well, it's good to have you here, Winter York, Barefoot Hippies. What's up? Stop falling asleep to it, man. Let's see. Although the priest no longer is his counselor, and the wise ones of his country no longer aid him in governmental problems, still he is never alone. You know what I forgot to do? Holy... What's up, Fringe FM? I think I messed up. I think I forgot to I forgot to do something. I'll have to fix something here. We might have to take a break real quick. For the priest in the white and the counselors in blue still march with him and whisper words of strength when he needs them. Have you seen people that somehow you liked regardless of appearance? In other words, he's asking you, have you came across people that you liked somehow regardless of what they look like? Have you seen other charming people whom you hated in spite of their charms? Have you seen learned people who were fools or impressed you as much, or people who knew little and yet you felt were wise? Those are the insignia of rank. That's kind of weird to say, isn't it? Which the loss of title or position cannot destroy. Kings, with or without crowns, they were, not puppets dressed in tawdry tinsel. And they still are kings and will be to the end of time. And they still manifest their rank, not by their superiority and their high-headedness, but by the soul qualities which they radiate from themselves. I think basically what he's saying is there are initiates or people that walk amongst us that kind of spread it like they glow a certain light or vibe or whatever. The Golden Dawn calls it the sphere of sensation. And I think these people either really attract certain energies in their life, or like you've heard this saying before, they piss off a lot of people that don't like the fact that they're glowing or happy, regardless of their circumstance. I think those are what he's talking about, just the regular spiritually initiated people. The purity of their lives still radiates outward from those who wore the apron of the initiate. For while the triangular apron with its serpent drawn upon it has long since rotted away, still the spiritual counterpart of that symbol radiates in their daily lives, providing beyond all dispute that they were priest kings and are today. Or he could be saying, like we asked before, are there people walking amongst us like this that we don't know about? We find them in every walk of life, in high places and down in the mires of life. But wherever we find them, they are still the mouthpieces of the gods, and through them comes the promise to all who strive. They are kings, not the earth, but of heaven. They're kings of heaven. And in the life of our own master, we find one who joined himself to those who served and was a true king, even when his only crown was a wreath of thorns. But still in the pyramid of Giza, the initiations continue. Still the initiate receives the insignia of his rank. Before that fire within himself, he makes his vows, and upon the burning altar of his own higher being, he lays his crown and his scepter, his robes and his diamonds, his hates and his fears, and sanctifies his life as a priest king, and swears to serve none but his own higher self and the God within. His robes are his soul body, and his crown is his life, and in the streets of life he is enthroned. The dusky towers and factory chimneys around him fade into the templed pillars of Luxor, and with a lunch pail on his arm, his face brown with honest dirt, he is as much a king as when the crown of the double Nile rested upon his brow, and the priest of the temple made him one with his God and his fellow man. That's pretty sweet. That's very sweet, Manly P. Hall. I have to fix something technically on the fly here. I hope you guys don't mind. But I think I'm kind of starting to think that Manly P. Hall wrote this book to explain the Western mysteries and Freemasonry and all kinds of different things without saying, you know, hey, there's plenty of us that are initiated right now, you know, that are might have been priest kings. Who knows? They might have been. But I think that's what he's saying. Because the real question was, before I started reading this book, is, are there people that are like walking amongst us that are hidden, fighting big spiritual battles or fighting astral wars? I'm sure you guys have heard this, right? Like people that are fighting wars in the astral realm or watchers over the earth kind of thing. Angels unaware. But I think the more I read this book, then I think that he's talking about just everyday people like you and me that have been initiated spiritually. Properly, right? Whether you're a workman or you're in the government, I guess. Okay. This is all the zombies' fault. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Okay. Let's see, what's the next one? The Ark of the Covenant. Ooh, this is pretty important. All right, you guys give me a second, because I really have to fix this. This is important, and then we'll read this, okay? Little music for you. No harm done. And we'll be right back. This is not really a commercial break. It's just something I have to fix. Give me just a second. Well, that made the heart speed up. The codec got locked up on the station, so it's spinning back up. I love you YouTube people and all, but like the radio station is my baby, man. Like I looked up and that big flashing thing was going off. Like, oh no. So sorry about that, you guys. But you're the only ones that can hear until this thing winds back all the way up here. So maybe we get some people coming over from the station. I don't know. They might be upset. Whatever. All right, so we're going to get to, make sure I'm recording this, double check. We're going to get into the Ark of the Covenant, chapter 5. So one of the most interesting symbols that has come down to us from the ancients is that of the Ark, or the box that was said to contain the sacred relics. Many people believe that this belongs particularly, I can't say that word sometimes, to the Jewish nation. But this is a great mistake because it has been the birthright of every country to have the Ark. All have, like the Jewish people, lost much of their power and glory when they lost the sacred Ark. In ancient Chaldea and Phoenicia, the Ark was well known. India celebrates it as the lotus, and the ancient Egyptians tell us how the moon god Osiris, really, was imprisoned in the Ark. In all the mystery religions of the world, individually and cosmically, the Ark represents the fountainhead of wisdom. Over it, the Shekinah's glory hovers, as a column of flames by night and as a pillar of smoke by day. Every country has seen and felt its presence when the priest kings and initiates bring out of an old civilization lost because of crystallization the sacred Ark, and surrounded by those faithful to the truth carry it into the other hands and other lands, and among other people. So obviously the Ark isn't, according to Manly P. Hall, just like a physical object, right? Maybe not. I was hoping it was because I'm more of a sci-fi nerd. I'd like it to be some like fantastic spaceship thing or something, you know? What's up, Fringe FM folks? Sorry about that. We had a lockup here on the station. Thanks for joining us live. We're already 40 minutes into the show. So, in every creed and religion, we find crystallization. We find small groups of people separating themselves from their brother man. We find those who, clinging to the old, refuse to advance with the new. And whenever we find this crystallization, we find the spirit of truth carried away to other people and embodied in other doctrines. The ancient Ark of the Israelite never had removed it from the staves by which it was carried and moved, until finally it was placed in Solomon's temple. Well, now we know it's a metaphor. What's up, Aussie girl? Has anyone ever told you that you have a great voice for radio? Yeah, I haven't figured out how to make an actual, like, successful career out of it yet, though. It might have something to do with the fact that I was playing zombies and got distracted. So we know Solomon's temple is a metaphor. Neither does the spirit fire in man rest until finally it is enthroned in the holy place of his solar temple. Every and ever towards the rising sun it carries the sacred truth. Nations are born of those who love the truth and are buried when they forget it. The time has come when its silent bearers have taken the sacred Ark and the Shekinah's glory, and in solemn file have moved across the waters and brought it to the new world. The call has sounded through the universe, and those who are true to their own higher principles have surrounded the sacred chest. Those who have sworn alliance to their own higher being are following the priests and their sacred burden, and a beautiful mystery temple is being built in this beautiful land of ours, loved and guarded by those who are laboring for humanity. The staves are still in the Ark, however, and only when real good can be done by it will it remain. So have you sworn fealty to your higher self? It does make you wonder, like, all the people that claim to be spiritual and metaphysical and all that stuff, do you really think that they've sworn fealty to their higher selves? I'm not talking about being a monk, but there are lots of times in our life when it comes down to following the ticker here, the heart, and getting the heart and mind to line up, but letting the heart lead first, right? But where we just don't do it, either because we're greedy or selfish, or we want something that we know our soul wants something different. This is why when I do tarot readings, I freak out, because the tarot always mirrors what's going on in the soul most of the time when I do readings. And a lot of times, if people are bucking against it, or they don't want to go with what their soul is trying to get them to do, which is break through the karmas of the energies they were born with, it doesn't mean your life has to be miserable, but it does set you free. A lot of times you're going to come up against things that need to change that you just don't want. And I'm speaking for myself here too, like that you just don't want to change. You just can't let it go, or you're not sure that you have it in you to do it, or whatever. It doesn't have to be that way all the time, but that's how energy kind of works, this kind of charging and discharging that we talk about all the time. Like, in order for you to break the boundaries of your karma, you're going to have to do the hard stuff sometimes. Why is it so hard to do the right thing? That's the real question. The opportunity is now confronting the Western world. The knowledge of the ancients, the wisdom of the ages is knocking at the door and seeking those who will follow it. The bearers of the ark have stopped and are gathering a nucleus of spiritual souls to carry on their work. And whether or not the world of the Lord will remain with a nation depends upon its own actions. And the actions of a nation are the collective actions of its individuals. If it finds nothing here attuned to itself, it finds few that will answer to its call, the call of service and brotherhood and sisterhood to you too, right? To you ladies. And then will its priests lift again the staves, and the sacred work will go on into other lands. The life of a country thus gone, like the ancient city of the Golden Gate, it will be swallowed up in oblivion. You know, keep in mind that if this isn't religious, Manly P. Hall, well, I would say good Masons or Western mystery people, especially Manly P. Hall, anytime they mention the Creator or God or the Lord or anything like that, they're not talking about just the Christian God or any specific God. They're talking about the Creator, the Grand Architect, the Lord of the universe kind of thing. Even though I'm just saying that because some of this sounds religious. The call is sounding, and those who love the truth and think and care for the light must join that band of servers who have for centuries dedicated themselves to the preservation of truth. Their lives they live have given 1,000 times. Their happiness has been second to their duty. They are the keepers of the sacred word, and the law of attraction draws to them all who love and live the truth. A great influx of spiritual light comes to those who live the life and have learned the doctrine, and regardless of clan or country, they have joined the silent file of watchers and workers around the sacred ark of the covenant. Every individual, by his daily actions, is expressing more plainly than by words his ideals. That's true. Remember, like if you don't know the truth about something, all you got to do is shut everything up and just watch the actions of what's going on, and that's the truth. He's expressing more plainly than by words his ideals, his desires, and his attitude towards this great work. The composite attitude of a certain number of people either shuts out or lets in the light. Therefore, every individual has a great duty, a great work that has to be done. And to that, the true student must dedicate his life. Then wherever he may go, whatever he may do, he's being led, and the Shekinah's glory directs his footsteps. You guys remember that show we did about the Shekinah, right? What is that? The Shekinah, or the Holy Spirit. Some would say that's the feminine aspect, or the Holy Spirit, or the spiritual side of life. Mother Gaia. In the brain of man, between the wings of the kneeling cherubim, is the mercy seat. And there man speaks with his God, as the priest of the tabernacle spoke to the Spirit of the Lord hovering between the wings of the angels. Once again, we're talking about the pineal gland here. Man is again the ark, and within him are the three principles in every person: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the tablets of the law, the pot of manna, and the rod that budded. But as in the case of the ancient Israelites, when they became crystallized, the pot of manna and the rod that budded were removed from the ark, and all that was left were the tablets, or the letters of the law. When the individual crystallizes and excludes various sidelights from his mind, he excludes the life force which was flowing to him. In shutting out strangers, he shuts out his own life, and all that he is left are the tablets of the law, the material reasons from which the spiritual life has gone. This all goes back to don't hide your light. Don't hide your light under a bushel, or put out your candle. In Rosicrucianism and in Golden Dawn magic, it's called LVX, Luke's energy, right? To expand your light into the void from inside you into the world. Express your individuality through the heart. No matter what or how many people it may not agree with. Do it in love and in truth. Truth and love are supposed to go together. I think we forget that sometimes. Solomon's temple, or the perfected temple of the human body, the perfected temple of the universe, and the perfected temple of the soul, finally forms the perfect shrine for the living ark. There at the head of a great cross it is placed, and there in man it becomes permanently fixed. The staves of polarity upon which it was carried are removed, and it becomes a living thing, a permanent place where man converses with his God. There man, the purified priest, arrayed in the robes of his order, the garments of his soul, converses with the Spirit hovering over the mercy seat. This ark within is always present, but man can only reach it after he has passed through the outer court of the tabernacle, after he has passed through all the degrees of initiation, and after he has taken the third degree and becomes a grand master. 3 degrees, that's it. Then and then only can he enter into the presence of his Lord, and there, in the dark chamber, lighted by the jewels of his own breastplate, he converses with the Most High, the true spiritual essence within himself. Imagine if someone picked up this book, right, and they looked at it totally literally. People would be like, man, what is he talking about? Dude, he's talking about like crazy priest kings and some kind of initiate class, but he's using big time metaphor and spiritual language and all of, explaining that all these symbols are parts of us. We all are working towards this, and the time will come when each person for himself will know the mystery of the ark. When the student through purification shall be led through the door of the Holy of Holies, and there be enveloped by the light of truth. This was his birthright, which he sold for a mess of pottage. To this end came he into the world, that he might bear witness to this truth, that through this light all men might be saved. That's a quote. The ark, that great spiritual principle surrounded by its loving workers, is calling all to follow it. When through materiality and degeneracy a great people are destroyed, or a continent sinks beneath the ocean, then those that are true are called around the ark, and as its faithful servers are led out of the land of darkness into the new world and the promised paradise. All great teachings set forth the same thing. The student will find that this is true. This is a natural truth. And when he allies himself with the powers of light, when he becomes a channel for its expression, and when he radiates it from himself to all who need it, then indeed will the light protect him, and he shall become a son of God, S-U-N. Very interesting. So that's the ark. All right, so the next one here is the Holy Grail. Let's see what else you got. What's up, Genevieve? Wu-Tang. We want a road trip to Arkansas to the shack and get a reading. Man, as long as there's only been a few people that I've let in this shack, and I regretted that. Like, I let a couple of people in here, and I regretted it. But this is sacred ground here, man. No, just play it. No, you could, if you come out here, just let me know. There's all kinds of cool stuff to do in Arkansas, brother. We'll go diamond hunting if you want to go diamond hunting, or we go to hot springs and hit the lakes and the natural springs if you want. Okay, what's next here? Knights of the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail. In this cup your own body within, which is the lifeblood of the sun spirit of the universe. Each day that we live, we perpetuate the Last Supper, and in all that we do, we drink again the blood of Christ, the life power of the cosmos. Before starting to take up the study of the Grail legends, it will be well for all who are interested to read those tales that are now listed under the heading of children's fairy stories. For example, the story of good King Arthur and his Round Table is a cosmic myth. And while there is little doubt that he as a man also lived, the real mystery, as in the story of the Christ, is not the literal tale, but the great mystic or occult truth that it concealed under allegory and parables. It is the same with the story of Parsifal, which can never be really understood and appreciated until the student sees in the knight and the latter king of the sacred cup his own spiritual development and the temptation he must also master if he would become a king of the Grail. In Lohengrin, also the same truth is shown to the world. It is the path of initiation along which each must pass on his road to self-mastery. The every nation and in every tongue, secret legends have been given to teach man the path that he must follow. The blind Homer of the Greeks, who told of the wanderings of Ulysses, gave the same great truth to the world. The skalds of ancient Norway and Sweden and the prophets of the Jews used the same means, and everywhere, from the sacred books of the East to the legends of the American Indians, we find one great connected truth told to many different people in ways that were best suited for their development. It's got a picture of the sword and the stone here. Whoever can draw this sword from the stone is the master of the universe. I remember my grandmother used to have a little shack. Funny enough, she had a video shack outside, and for extra money she would rent VHS tapes, and it was a very small video shack that she had. But my grandmother, no matter how old she was always doing something for money. She even made badges till her fingers hurt. But when I was very little, just outside we had a video shack, and in that shack we were poor. So we didn't have every Disney movie, but because we had that shack, I got to watch every Disney movie as a kid. I was lucky. And as long as I rewound it and put the tape back in the shack and it wasn't rented out, I could watch it. So I remember one of my favorites was The Sword and the Stone, the Disney movie, The Sword and the Stone. Just made me think of that for some reason. So, such a truth is the legend of the Round Table given to King Arthur as a wedding gift. All true students know that wedding, or what wedding that was. He's talking about the bridegroom, really. Not of earth, but the wedding of the spiritual and intellectual within the initiate himself. When the spirit and the body are united eternally, each swearing to honor and protect the other. Of such a marriage was the union of Arthur and Guinevere and the legend of the king. Almost said Genevieve. Let us first of all consider the coming of Arthur the king. We read in the legend of Arthur regarding Merlin the magician, the wise man who had charged the coming king during his youth. Merlin represents the hand of the elder brothers, who, realizing that a great ego had come into the world, which had consecrated themselves to the work of preparing him for his mission. It was under the direction of Merlin, the mastermind, that the anvil and the stone with the sword thrust into it were raised in the square of the city when it became necessary for a new king to be selected. It was he also who called all of the brave knights of the country and told them that one who could draw forth the sword would be the king of the land. And all the knights in the land, Arthur, the half-grown boy, was the only one who could release the sword. There is a very wonderful mystery of the soul contained within the divine allegory. Let us read the letters that were engraved upon the sword. Quote, "Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone and anvil is the right wise king born of England." End quote. The cube stone is the body. It has been so symbolized for centuries, and today among the Masons, the ashlar is the symbol of man. It's the double cubed altar in the Golden Dawn and Rosicrucian stuff too. Experience is the anvil, and it is upon this anvil that the sword is tempered. The sword is spirit, and he who would be king in the true spiritual sense of the word must first show his divine power by freeing the sword of spirit from the casings of the lower man and the world. Pretty cool symbolism. See, I didn't know that when I was a kid. I didn't know cubes and stones were actually spiritual allegories for the material world. It is the same symbol as the ladder used by Sir Galahad. The guileless knight, the personification of the purified man who comes without a sword, but who later arms himself with the sword of spirit that he draws from the cube block, which was floating down the river of life past Camelot. Sir Galahad had the strength of 10 because his heart was pure, and the knight of today must follow in the same path. If you have read the story of King Arthur, you will remember how he was given Excalibur, the enchanted sword, and how it came up out of the water held by a hand draped in white. Excalibur represents light and truth, which is the weapon of the true initiate. In England, there still hangs on a courthouse wall the round table of King Arthur. In the very center of the table is a beautiful rose painted in natural colors. This symbol is that of the Rosicrucians, the ancient alchemists, and there is a direct connection between the legend of the British king and the ancient philosophers of fire. Now let us turn our attention for a moment to the history of the Holy Grail, or the cup from which Christ drank at the Last Supper, and which he was said to have caught his blood when he was dying upon the cross. Ancient legends tell us that this cup was made from a sacred stone which had been the crown jewel of Lucifer, the dynamic energy of the universe. It was said that the green stone had been struck from the crown of Lucifer by the archangel Michael during the famous battle in heaven. And after the death of Christ, it is said that Joseph of Arimathea took the sacred cup and the spear of the Passion and carried them into a distant land. He wandered with his relics through Europe, and it is said to finally died, and those who came after him, after many centuries of tribulation, carried those sacred relics to Mount Salvat in northern Spain, where they remain until Parsifal finally took the grail and spear back to the east, where it is now to be preserved. It is around this cup and spear that the legends of Parsifal and King Arthur have been written, and it is through the study of this fact that we are able to better understand the mystery of the Great White Lodge, of which the Round Table of Arthur and the circular Temple of the Knights of the Grail is a symbol. Although we no longer have the cup as a physical symbol, it is not gone from among us, and is in the days of old the brave knights of the Round Table that went out to fight for right. And so those knights of today who belong to the Great White Brotherhood go out into the world in the name of truth and labor with mankind, and seek to right the wrongs of the world. It is said that the knights of Arthur's court always fought for virtue and purity, and so did those who rode out of Mount Salvat. The Grail Cup is the symbol of the creative force of nature. It is also the symbol of the human race, which is slowly learning the mysteries of creation. Would you say he's right about that we're slowly learning the mysteries? I think we are. As a collective, we definitely are. Within the cup is the blood of Christ, that force which is transmuting the body into soul, fast or slowly as we give it greater or lesser opportunity. And the sacred spear we find symbolized again the creative force, which is the hands of Kingsler, or Klingzer, the evil one, wounds and causes suffering, but which, when held by the pure Parsifal, heals the very wound that it caused. A great lesson is being taught to man through the allegories, but the average person is unwilling to stop and consider them. They do not realize that they themselves are the ones whom the elder brothers of humanity must use in the fight against the forces of evil. They do not realize that the dragons and ogres of the legends are their own lower natures which they must overcome. They do not see in the hand-to-hand combat of the knights of the old for a lady's hand the higher and lower man fighting for the soul within. The knight of today does not realize that the white armor that he wears in his own purified body, which is proof against all the attacks of vice and passion, but nevertheless, this is the meaning of the legend. His shield is truth, which is a perfect protection to the inner man. His strong right arm is the knowledge and spiritual power he has developed within, and the sword that he uses is the spiritual light with which the pure flame of the spirit fire dispels the darkness of ignorance and the demons of lust. The sacred spear and the cup with which he serves are the two poles of the creative life force within, the development of which he gains as he daily serves his fellow men. Far from the uninitiated, the 12 elder brothers of mankind sitting around the circular table of the universe watch the knights in their battle of life. And the time comes when the student, having finished his work here, is liberated at the foot of the grail. And there the candidate stands robed from head to foot in the armor of spirit and in the pure white of a body that has been cleansed. Where does he's kind of hinting to Revelations right there, because that whole process of that he just said is like 3 or 4 different verses in Revelations, right? The bridegroom, the marriage of the bridegroom, and all this stuff, mind and body, or spirit and the body, the purification, the white robes, the new name, all that stuff, the crowns that Revelation talks about over and over again. Then the cloth is lifted from the sacred cup, and he is illuminated by the light which would have killed him, and he has seen it without purification. He then takes his place among the knights of the round table and joins those who give up all and labor for humanity. When in sickness and in suffering we beg of the great unknown that he send us help, then indeed our knight comes to us, as Lohengrin came to Elsa. When our loved ones pass into the great unknown, there stands the brother of the Grail, the invisible helper, who through the days of labor has earned the right to become a member of that great band of servers who gather around the table of the king, and while their bodies are asleep, still labor in the great search for light and truth, and pray for the day when they shall also become kings of the Holy Grail. Yeah, Manly P. Hall definitely does have a way of making all this stuff romantic. But again, if you want to get into the mysteries of this stuff, and let's say you don't like any of this stuff, then all you got to do is, let's say you're more of a masculine natured brain, not person, but let's say brain. So you like logic and reason and science and formulas and arithmetic. Well, then more than likely, if you want to study the mysteries, you're going to be drawn into numerology, sacred geometry, and the mysteries of biology and its processes. But if you're more of a right-brained person, or if you want to tap into more of that creative, that feminine, or that side of you, all of these allegories and romantic things and rituals and ceremonies and plays and music and symbolism in this nature will speak to you. But most of us have both of those things inside of us. I think the problem, really, and we have to take the radio station break here, but I think the bigger problem is when we get polar minded. This doesn't make sense, but the geometry does, or that sounds way out there, because they're too polar. They're way far in their left brain, so they'll never pick up on the allegory or vibrate with the romanticism of it all. I'm hoping I'm making sense. So in magic, you're kind of using both sides of the brain when you're doing ceremony. You're using all of it. And if you listen to some ceremonies, I'd hate to even say Crowley, but there's only a few like people that have actually recorded themselves doing like a ceremony or ritual. The deeper they give into the play of it, like the deeper that they give into the drama of the ritual, the more it activates that feminine side of the person. It's like powering it up. It's like pulling up the jet engine. You got all the logic side of the mind when you're doing the ceremony, you know, the symbolism, the time, the day, the hour, the senses and stuff. And then you go through the drama and the play and you let your emotions get involved. And now what are you doing? Same thing Robert Monroe does, just in a different way. You're syncing both hemispheres of the mind. So you're elevating your consciousness, or you're trying to activate the third eye. Mysticism is sitting there and meditating and having it happen. And magic is active. It's trying to get it to happen. I think a mixture of both is good for the soul, in my opinion. I've yet to turn the air conditioner on in the shack just because I'm afraid of how much money it's going to cost. So if I have beads of sweat pouring off of my head, I apologize. We have to take a short radio station break. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void live on the Fringe FM. Stay with us. We're going to finish this damn book. This is actually one worth finishing.
Of a feeble human intellect trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. And all of them as artificial as the Matrix itself. Although only a human mind could invent something as insipid as love. You must be able to see it, Mr. Anderson. You must know it by now. You can't win. It's pointless to keep fighting. Mr. Anderson, why do you persist?
Because I choose to. Hi, this is Kronox from Belgium, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Bumper stickers are a fun side hustle with low-cost investment that has built-in advertising to attract local customers in parking lots, rallies, gatherings, conventions, venues, and more. You could potentially sell these bumper stickers on consignment to local businesses, tattoo parlors, head shops, or any other independently owned store that might gear toward the fringe. Bumper stickers are great gift-giving ideas for friends and family. Also, a way to wake up your fellow travelers on the path without having to waste energy in tiresome debates. No car? No problem. Bumper stickers will stick to just about anything with a semi-smooth surface. Go to www.justbsme.com and get your bumper stickers today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You are listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Olivia from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our 2 signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Roop. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
This is Malorcas45, fan of the Fridge FM, challenging everyone to open their mind's eye. Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
Did the stuff come? Yeah, come in. You ever see a preamplifier like this? Got a magnetic phonotape head, distortion 2%, harmonic unmeasurable. You know, I can't afford it. How about this new Faldeck speaker? You fiend, you know I'm still paying on the indoor boosters and the stereo dappers. You dirty rat. You got me started on this stuff. Take it easy, Charlie. You came to me. Don't forget if you can't handle it. Charlie, stay away from those knobs. Charlie, don't touch that big knob.
Some sellers can get a guy like Charlie pretty easy.
I'm gonna check this man before he gets too goddamn. I have a very perplexing hum coming from my DAC off 20,000 watt power amplifier.
Stay clean, Chuck. Pipe dreams keep a fiend stuck, obsessing over every new toy and beat machine touch. From clean cut kid to craft sewer rat, digging through the trash and dollar bins, slipping through the.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void live here on the Fringe FM, and we are digging back into the works of Manly P. Hall, the philosopher, 33rd degree honorary Freemason, the man of many lectures, One night, we're going to have to do a show on how he died. I mean, that was really mysterious. And if you like Manly P. Hall, you should go back and listen to the broadcast that we did with Ronnie Pontiac, who was one of his last students, also an assistant lecturer as well. I mean, I'm hoping Ronnie gets way out there because that man needs to get his message out too. He's delivering some good stuff. All right, so we got to push through this. The Mystery of the Pyramid, Chapter 7. Real quick, I want to say, for those they're keeping up with the times and have listened to that Terrence Howard interview or Billy Carson or whoever it is that you listen to that inspires you to understand all of this, I'm just asking you, because there's always people that want to like try things out but that are afraid. If you could find a way to ritualize or make a ceremony out of something that you love or something that you desire in your heart, right? Because honestly, most people, if you think about it, they're not really interested in magic or whatever unless it's going to get them something. And then it's scary, so it's like, what's the risk? But I'm not or taking the risk is scary, but I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is you brush your teeth every day. Well, you do ritual every day, right? So let's take this one step up. Let's just say once a day you start lighting a candle. It's not scary, right? And I'm not trying to tempt you or anything. I'm just trying to get you to think here. And then the next day you light 2 candles. And then, a few weeks from that, after you light some incense, and then you say a prayer. You're that close to doing magic anyways. So why not go ahead and just, even though your little heart's speeding up, be vulnerable to the universe, actually test, not assume or anything, but just test out this theory that the collective is all connected, that we're all connected somewhere, and speak into it through ceremony. Just try it. And if that still scares you, then do it through meditation. Right? Just try it. If it comes from the heart, like if it's something that makes you cry, if it's something that you really love or something that really touches the soul, how evil could it really be? I always tell people to do this experiment first. Like if you want to try to, quote, manifest something or whatever. First, try to manifest something that you don't care about, but you really got to put some effort into it. Try to manifest something that you really could care less whether it becomes real or not. Then try to manifest something that you really desire just for yourself. And then thirdly, try to manifest something that you would love that would make someone else happy. And just watch what happens. Do this enough times and you'll see how trippy it is. You'll find that you can easily manifest the things that you care nothing about. Why is that? 2, the thing that you desire the most. I would even say selfishly. Not bad, we're not putting a judgment on it, but 2, that becomes hard, or sometimes it doesn't always manifest the way that you would like. 3, the thing that if you actually have made it this far and you're into trying to do something kind or loving for someone else and manifest it, not something against their will, but just something really good that, for somebody that you love. Make sure it's not against their will or you're not invading their privacy, that kind of thing. And watch the blessings happen in their life simply because someone else was paying attention. Someone else cared about them. It's trippy to watch how it all happens. Actually, it becomes like a weird science experiment for me. All right. Because I know I get these messages all the time. I'm thinking about doing this, but I grew up Christian and I grew up or this or whatever. I'm scared. Fear is always a good sign, if you ask me. So Chapter 7 is the mystery of the pyramid. So there comes a time in the development of the occult student when he understands one of the greatest secrets of initiates. And that is that every sacred thing outside of himself stands for some organ or function within himself. This is, of course, true in the case of the Great Pyramid, except that this particular pile of stone, said by many to be the oldest building on the surface of the earth, is the great symbol of composite man. In other words, it stands for the man as a unit. Let us first consider it simply from the exterior standpoint. When we first look at it in the distance, it seems to be one big stone. But as we come closer, we see that it is made of thousands of smaller stones, each one carefully fitted into place. Here we see the first likeness between the pyramid and man. We consider man to be a unit, but when we examine more closely, we find that he is a great number of small units, each working in harmony with the others. It is the same with everything. We take a successful life, and we think of it as an entirety, but when we examine it, we find that it is a number of small achievements joined together. As the thousands of workmen were used in this building of the pyramid, so there are unnumbered workmen at the work in the building of our bodies, which are symbolical of the same building. There are many pyramids all over the world. We find them in South America and in Mexico. We find mounds which were made to represent them among the American Indians. And in Europe and Britain, we find remnants of the same thing. But there is only one real pyramid in all the world. Guess what that is? There's only one real pyramid in all the world. Even the others in Egypt are but copies of the Great Pyramid and were used as tombs for the pharaohs. But nobody was ever found in Cheops, nor were there ever any signs that it had been so used. So now let us continue our analogy between the pyramid and man. If you will look at the accompanying illustration, you will see the pyramid laid flat, and you will notice that it is made of 4 triangles laid around the base square. The 4-sided base of the pyramid represents the 4 elements of which man's bodies are composed, and these are hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon, or, esoterically, these are earth, water, fire, and air. These are called the base of all things, and upon this base the 4 bodies of man are raised, each from its own element. Thus the physical body is raised from the earth, the vital body raised from the water, the emotional body from the fire, and the mental body from the air. There are 12 lines used in the drawing of the 4 triangles, which stand for the 12-fold constitution of man when it is complete. The 3-fold body, the 3-fold mind, and the 3-fold soul, and the 3-fold spirit. It also gives us the 12 signs of the zodiac divided into their respective groups. And I think I'm going to see if I can show you guys, if you're watching on YouTube, these are just Manly's drawings. So we don't really know that. These aren't fancy. That's what I'm saying. So here he's got the chambers, right? The cross section of the Great Pyramid of Giza. He's calling this section the Holy Spirit. This the solar plexus, and here's the baseline. Here are the Son or the Christ force and the Father. And here he's got a picture of, it looks like the 4 elements. So here we see the pyramid laid out so that the 4 triangles and the square are clearly seen. And this represents man once again in the ancient pyramid, is man offering his higher being upon the altar of the great fire spirit. Because that's what a pyramid represents, is fire, right? And then this is, I guess he's saying, is the 12 inside here. So out on the desert stands the Sphinx, or the guardians of the threshold, mentioned by Bulwer-Lytton. It stands for the bodies of man and is the strange being which must be passed before the student can go on his development. The 4 fixed signs of which the Sphinx is a symbol are Taurus the bull, Leo the lion, Scorpio the eagle, and Aquarius the man or the human head. I've already given you some work on the sacrum bone, and I told you that it was the gravedigger's spade. Here's a picture of the head of the Sphinx and the inverted sacrum bone, when it has been turned upward. We see the Sphinx is the inverted sacrum, also in the inverted Masonic keystone. All this is very interesting, but unless we realize the inner meaning of it, its true value is lost. But it is not chance that these things should be so. You have, most of you, heard of the dweller on the threshold, the creature built by our own actions and mistakes. Well, out on Egypt's desert, it stands and bars the way to the pyramid, the temple of the higher man. And the message that it gives to the world is, I am the bodies. If you would go on to the temple, you must master me, for I am within you. The Sphinx again symbolizes man, with the mind and spirit of the human rising out of the animal desires and emotions. It is the riddle of the ages, and man is once more the answer. And it is said that in ancient times the Sphinx was the gateway of the pyramid, and that there was an underground passage which led from the Sphinx to Cheops. That's pretty interesting. Like a literal underground tunnel, huh? So, I don't know how old Manly P. Hall was when he made this, but I find that fascinating. Genevieve says, let's light up now. I'm getting out the incense. What's up, old shoe? That's funny, though. This would make the symbolism even more perfect, for the gateway to the spirit is through the bodies, according to the ancients. Let us now enter the pyramid, and passing through the corridors, come to the king's chamber, as it is called. There are 3 great rooms in the pyramid, which are of the great interest to the student. The highest is the king's chamber. Then below that is the queen's chamber. And down below the surface of the earth is the pit. Here we again find the great correlation between the pyramid and man. The 3 rooms are the 3 great divisions in man, which are the seats of the threefold spirit. The lower room is the generative system under the control of Jehovah. The center room or queen's chamber is the heart, under the control of the Christ. And the upper room or the king's chamber is the brain, which is under the control of the Father. And this upper room is the coffer made of stone, the meaning of which has never been explained, but which the student recognizes as the 3rd ventricle in the brain. It is quite certain also that this coffer was used as a tomb during initiation, when, as is the case in Masonic initiation of today, which are the remnants of ancient mysteries, the candidate was buried in the earth and resurrected, a symbol of the death of the lower man and the liberation of the higher. It is said that Moses was initiated in the Great Pyramid, and some also say that Jesus was instructed there also. But, that as it may, we know that for thousands of years since the time it was built by the Atlanteans, it has been the great temple of initiation in the world. It seems also that its work is not yet done, for mutely it is teaching those who will see the mysteries of creation. It is said that by many that is the original Solomon's temple, but this we know is not true. For while it may be the first and original material temple, the true temple of Solomon is the universe. The Solomon's temple, which is slowly being rebuilt in man as the temple of the soul of man. There's probably no point that is as important in connection with the pyramid as that of the cornerstone. On the very top of the Great Pyramid is a comparatively flat place about 30 feet square. In other words, the true stone, which is the head of all the corners, is missing. If we look at the reverse side of the United States seal, we find again the pyramid from which the top is separated. Omar Khayyam, the Persian poet, gives us the secret of the keystone when he says, quote, "From my base metals shall be filed a key, which shall unlock the door he howls without." The value of the stone is better understood when you understand that it completes all of the triangles at once, and without it, none of them are complete. This stone is the spirit in man, which fell from its high position and has been lost beneath the rubbish of the lower man. This is the true capstone that is now hidden in the pit of man's temple, and which he must exhume and place again as the true crown of his spiritual pyramid. He can only do this when he calls the thousands of workmen within himself together and binds them to the service of the higher. There must be no traitors to murder the builder this time, and Lucifer, that was once rejected by man as the devil, is the one who must, through the planet Mars, send man the dynamic energy which man himself must transmute from the fire of passion to the flames of spirit. Did y'all hear that? I told you the secret of alchemy was energetic. Let me say that again. There must be no traitors to murder the builders this time. And Lucifer, think about this symbolically, and Lucifer, the one rejected by man as the devil, which is our lower passions and desires, is the one who must, through the planet Mars, action, war, send man the dynamic energy which man himself must transmute from the fire of passion to the flame of spirit. So it is to transmute what energy? What energy do you think that is? I've been talking about sacred sexuality for years. Pretty much everything that we do has a sexual nature behind it. Just because we're not having sex, we have a force that gets us out of bed every day. Right? And no, girls, it's not just men. It's all humans. That force in itself, which causes us to do stupid things, bad things, idiotic things, especially as we're younger and growing up. But that same force is like this unpurified but pretty potent energy that has to be purified. Also, in alchemy, when you get deeper into this, you'll realize that the fires of the body aren't just the sexual forces. It's also the stomach and what we eat, too, as well. So then he must take the tools of the craft and cut and polish his own being into the capstone of the universal temple. It is interesting to note how the casing stones that once made the pyramid so beautiful and true were carried away to build the cities nearby. And in connection with it, it is interesting to note how the soul body of man, the causing stones of his spiritual temple, have been sacrificed in order that he might have material things. As we look at the pictures of the ancient pyramid and sphinx which have stood on Egypt's sands for ages, let us see in them our own mystery temple, made without the sound of hammer or the voice of workmen. And as we sadly think of this mighty ruin, broken by ages of neglect, let us remember our temple, and that its cornerstone is missing also, and our walls are falling with neglect. Let us learn the lesson which it teaches, and hasten to perfect our pyramid, cap it with a stone of spirit, and upon its altars our sacrifice to the great sun spirit, and bury our lower nature and its ancient coffer. Then for us will its mysteries be revealed, and the sealed lips of the Sphinx will give up their secret. So, like, in a sense, when this is cool the way he writes this, because he's kind of revealing the biological secrets of Kundalini, but also the spiritual enlightenment that happens, and then the alchemical process, all by, I mean, mainly P. Hall's kind of using analogy here too, but he's still giving away what used to be the secrets, right? Oh, he's got the white grail and the black grail here. I'll show y'all a picture of that. I can't, this is, I need to, when did he, this was published in 1922. Okay. So let me show you a picture of this. So on the left, he's got the white grail, which is service, self-sacrifice, purification, love, and study. And on the right side, you notice he's got the black grail, and he's got a little dollar sign there. Prosperity at others' expense, selfishness, shortcuts, mastered by your own appetite and comfort. So you can tell that Manly's pretty passionate about his beliefs. But it does sound kind of like Calvinist in a sense, right? Like it's all Puritan kind of, when he talks about purification, it does kind of feel religious, like a sinless person or a sinless man and that kind of thing. But it's really not. It's really just about wisdom, you know. I was telling Anthony while we were playing zombies earlier, all of the stupid decisions that I made when I was younger. And all of the suffering that it caused me. I mean, if you're in your 30s and your 40s, I would say at least your 40s, right? And you made stupid decisions. If you can't look back and see that any selfishness that you did, or any impulsiveness things that you did, or any of that stuff, like the suffering that it caused in your life from doing it, unless you were smarter than me, which you probably, most of you probably were, you probably thought and had compassion and all kinds of stuff, but I wasn't that way when I was younger. I was, I wasn't a bad person. You know, I wasn't a murderer, rapist, or a thief. You know, I wasn't any of those things, but I was self-centered. I was compulsive. I would do lots of things before I thought about them. My mind had nothing to do. Like, I wasn't centered around the universe or esotericism or spirituality or what's the nature of reality. None of that stuff. I was centered around feeling a void, whether it was through music, drugs, sex, sports. Later on, it became video games, golf. You know, and like, I'm not saying any of these things are bad. As a matter of fact, all those things I just mentioned are pleasant, right? But I thought that something was going to fill this void. I even, when I was younger, I even had a family. I was married. I had my own business. I was successful. I did all that stuff. And yet the void was still there, always there, just like some kind of vacuum, you know, like, that doesn't work. That's not enough. That's not making you happy. You know, I even tried religion. Religion seemed to work a little bit. Religion was filled a small gap. You know, it filled a small gap. But it wasn't until I started looking back upon everything. And I don't know how to explain this because it's really personal. But all of the suffering, I can't speak for you because I'm not you, but I can speak for myself. All of the suffering in my life was caused by the imbalance of that. Trying to fill a void by being led around by my lower nature. It's not like I'm preaching, or it sounds like preachy stuff, but it's just obvious. It's just obvious that we're these great beings on this planet. We're kind of set above everything in nature, so to speak. Not really, but intelligently we are. So it has to be for a reason. We're set above the animals for a reason. Because we're supposed to become something else, right? Just like everything in nature is in a state of becoming. But everything's also living, dying, and resurrecting too. So there's an alchemical process that's happening with your soul through each birth and death and resurrection. And every time you act upon things of your lower nature, you're either creating karma or you're acting upon it from your higher nature and you're destroying karma. And so when you see movies or mythologies or anything about angels and demons and this spiritual war and good and evil, that's pretty much what it is. I'm not saying there's not evil, but evil is the lowest of the lower nature. So some people are in different stages, like karmically or whatever. But when I was younger, I went through everything that a, quote, successful person, because when you get on the internet now, everything's about success, money, manifestation, success, money. Are you woman enough? Are you man enough? Success, money, success. What are you going to manifest? Manifest, success, money. It never stops. And it's just being fed into your brain, right? And there's nothing wrong with having good things in life. Of course, you need things. You need to experience the good of life. But I can tell you, I had all that. Like when I was younger, I had my own business when the housing market was thriving. I made over like $150 a year, easy. I don't even remember how much I was making. I was married. I had a child. I had toys. I had a bike, a motorcycle, a boat, a brand new set of golf clubs. I was going somewhere. every video game you can imagine, right? I was living life. I thought maybe this is what life is all about. But I was doing everyone around me a disservice because I was still not following my higher self. I was still unhappy. I tried to fill my life with material things. And don't get me wrong, I had fun. I gotta say I didn't have fun, but I was very impulsive when I was younger, right? Terrible husband, terrible. I was never physically abusive, but I was so selfish that I would just up and leave whenever I wanted. Just whenever I wanted. I did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. No one was going to stop me. If I wanted to up and leave and go to Memphis and watch a fight, I wouldn't ask my wife for permission or if this is okay or, you know. And if I did say, hey, do you want to go? It was just so I didn't feel bad about it. Or I'd go to the bars on the weekends. Or if I didn't feel like working, I'd go home and play video games. I did whatever the hell I wanted when I wanted. And none of it was ever enough. Ever. I got to the point where I felt so unsatisfied with my life as a youngster, married at like 21 years old, with a little, thank God Corbin was running around, the little dude, you know, because I probably would be dead if it wasn't for him. But I took out my disappointment and my anger on this unfulfillment that I felt deep inside of me. Like I felt it deep inside of me, but I didn't know what it was back then, you know? And I took that out on everyone around me, my family, my wife, my friends, my job, my employees. I took it out on them. I didn't care about nothing or nobody, anything but myself. Nothing. When Corbin came into this world, that started to change. But it scared me so much, how much I loved this little dude, that that's when like anxiety started happening, freaky things started happening to me. But I still had this miserable thing. Like, I mean, imagine, right? Like if we're all striving, like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, we're all striving to, like, if we get to this place in life, we're going to be happy and fulfilled once we get there. Never mind that comparing yourself to things is the leading cause of depression, but when we get there, we'll be happy. That's finally when we'll be able to settle down or retire, whatever. It's like this carrot that's been dangled in front of you all the time, you know. But anyways, so I got there, is what I'm saying. I got there. I did everything I could to get there, and I was going to have everything I wanted. All based upon, trust me, every ounce of this was based upon my lower nature. Got the woman I wanted. She belonged to me, right? I got the business I wanted. It made me the money I needed. I got all the food and toys I wanted, all the video games I wanted. I could do anything I wanted. And yet something inside me was getting angrier and more depressed and angrier. Now, I didn't know it at the time. That's a lot of damn fire, by the way. But that's, you know, I think it's easier for men to be that way. I don't know. But I didn't know it at the time. But I was miserable. And once the anxiety and stuff started kicking in, once I got divorced, I thought, you know what? I still don't feel free enough. I can't be me. This marriage is trapping me, right? And like, I got to the point where I couldn't even stand being around my partner, so to speak, or my wife, which is terrible. That's fucking terrible. She didn't deserve that. She was sweet to me. Not all the time, but, you know, she was a good woman. But I didn't care. And so I hoped and tried to manifest for the freedom. You know, when you do that thing, I hate this job, or I hate this person, or I hate whatever. And deep down in your soul, you have no idea what you're manifesting, because you don't hate that person or that job. You hate yourself because you haven't figured this out yet. You're just taking it out on everybody else. But that's exactly what I did. And guess what happened? I lost all of it within like a year, like a bad country song. It's just like a thing that happens to me sometimes. The marriage first, the business second, friends third. So the toys, they went away too. I had to sell all of them. I had to move out of the place that I lived on, a golf course. I had to move out of there, and each place that I moved within that year, it got slummier and slummier. And I don't mean like bad. I'm not trying to talk crap about it, but it wasn't as comfortable. So naturally, alchemically, this fire that I was letting rule me forced me into a place of discomfort. That's what my soul actually, I know this is going to sound crazy, but that's what my soul actually wanted. Not Joseph, not the ego, but that's what the soul actually wanted. So every now and then when you tell yourself, man, I hate this job, or I don't want to do this, or I wish, or whatever, if you really pay attention to what you're saying and doing, that's your soul speaking. And I became angrier and angrier, heartbroken, actually. I lost weight to the point where I couldn't eat. So the energy was starting to work the other way. It wasn't working the right way. It was starting to work the other way. I lost like 50 or 60 pounds just from not eating, just from my own misery. I felt lost. Once again, in the twilight zone, in the void. And I was so hurt and so in pain and so alone in my 20s back then that instead of doing exactly what my heart was asking me to do, you think I'd learned my lesson, right? My heart was asking me to follow my higher self. Like, what is it, man? Like, what is that childlike energy about you? What is it that you're trying to bring into the world? Each and every one of us have this, right? But I would ignore that. I was like, I got to fix this other problem. So I would study the formulas of everything. Well, what's the formulas to make sure that I never get heartbroken again? Or how do I attract any woman that I want? Or what's this formula on how to make as much money as I can? So I'm clawing, right, to try to get all this stuff back. Because I thought I didn't want it, but now I want it back. I want it back. You know, I was wrong. But I need to know a deeper, like, formula. It's like mad science, right? A plus B equals C. Once I got that figured out, this will never happen to me again. This is why we seek formulas all the time, because we're afraid of letting go. We're afraid of not knowing. We're afraid of the mystery. We need to know. And that's just a protection thing, right? And so I found formulas. And that broke my heart even more, honestly. I started learning about the unconscious mind, about attraction and how it worked both ways, how it was turned on, how it was turned off. I learned about sales. I got a job in sales. I sold cars and sold Airstreams, and learned how to talk to people, learned how to manipulate. Yeah. I would go to meetings, these sales meetings in the mornings, and be told that I was nothing or worthless because I didn't make more money off of my family instead of it's harder to make, this is what they would tell you in these meetings. You know, it's easy to make money off your family. You should be doing that because they know you, they trust you. That's pathetic that you can't make a good profit off of them. I could see if it was a complete stranger, that's hard, but these people you should be banking off of, that's pathetic. Why don't you just go home? Boy, the void got deeper. And as I'm like clawing, trying to get this success back in my life and everything back, it just got darker. And I started seeing what the world was. Like, not people, just the dark nature of things. Right? What the hell has this materialization done to us all, you know? And that's where kind of lighting the void started coming into picture. Things got really bad. It wasn't during the happening of losing everything. It was trying to get it all back when I was lost that is when I found spirituality. Is when I found the esoteric, and I started asking deeper questions, and got kicked off of the car lot, actually, because I was talking too much about these things. I wouldn't do things that I thought were wrong. I decided one day, I woke up, and I was emotionally hurt. I'd made myself addicted to substances, trying to fill this void, all kinds of stuff, stupid shit. And I decided one day, I don't know what the hell it was just one day, that I would never, ever not listen to that voice again. If something was right, I was going to try to do it. I'm not perfect. I don't do it all the time, for sure. But if I'm not just going to be led around by my impulsiveness. If something was right, I was going to try to do it. And it doesn't get easier. After that, it gets harder because, I mean, that's a whole other discussion. But if I felt something was right, no matter if there were 10, 50, 1, my dad, my best friends, 100 people, if I thought I was going to stand up for what I felt was right in my heart, I was going to ask questions that I know people are afraid of, but they just don't talk about. I was going to try to love others the way I wanted to be loved, which was really the problem to begin with. Because I was disconnected from that feminine force as a child, right? I knew nothing about femininity, the Shekinah, or any of the stuff that these mysteries talk about. So I was fascinated by it. Love, which is kind of like the ultimate feminine force, is love. Masculine is freedom. Feminine is love. It's all the same thing, really, but you could define it this way. And I dug for that, and I found a bigger and bigger void. But the more I got into these mysteries, the more I started looking into stuff. You know, when you first go into the metaphysical section into a library or whatever, the first time you do it, especially if you're like a Christian or an atheist, and you kind of ease over to that metaphysical section in the library, and you're not sure what the hell you're doing there, but you start looking at all these titles of these books. It's like you kind of want to run away because you know someone's watching you. What book is he about to grab? Is he about to grab, you know, the one about aliens, or is he going to grab the one about witchcraft or whatever? And the first book that I grabbed was Conversations with God. And I'm not saying that guy had all the answers, but there was something in that first book that unlocked a door for me. And then the Robert Monroe material stuff. And then I went out and got just a job talking to people and solving problems, not really sales related, didn't really care that if I made a bunch of money or not. I just had child support I had to pay. I needed a job. And during that whole time, I became fascinated with consciousness, the out-of-body experience. And I had relationships, and I didn't have relationships. And I made money sometimes, and sometimes I didn't make money. And sometimes I had toys, and sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I was dirt poor, and sometimes I had it didn't matter. Like this thing, I finally found something that was leading me to a place that felt like it didn't matter what was happening on this earth, that I would be okay regardless, because I started understanding the wave pattern or the up and downs of life. And for the first time, I started to be able to exhale a little bit. And it doesn't mean like that stuff goes away. There's always a greater fear and a bigger challenge each time you go through something. But I think right now, humanity is going through it, because we're coming up against, you know, how the shot came out. That kind of triggered this idea of, whoa, are we going to conform, or is it like, are we going to talk about truth? Because it's definitely not popular to talk about truth. And so this war started happening all at the same time. You can see on the internet now across every podcast, and people like Terrence Howard, Billy Carson, or Rogan, or whoever's talking, you know, Graham Hancock, all these people are talking. And I just noticed the other day that there's a spiritual war going on, but it's not like what we thought. It's not like angels and demons and all this other stuff. It's just that what did he call it? Sheldrake called it the wave, right? So if you look at Joe Rogan's past few podcasts, they're maybe half a million or something. And then as soon as Howard gets on and starts talking about the nature of reality, it hit 2, 3 million, 4 million. It wasn't long ago that you and I were sitting here and we thought we were the fringe, I guess, right? Or the odd man out, you know? We thought that's what we were, but we really weren't. And now everybody's starting to think about this stuff. Morphic resonance, that's what it is. Yeah. Sheldrake's. And so I can tell you for the first time in my life, now that I'm 42 years old, success is great. It's a good thing, but it doesn't matter to me. It matters at a level, but not to the level it used to. All of those lower things that I used to chase are simply just pleasure things to me. They don't really matter, you know. Sucks not to have it, you know, but it doesn't matter the way it used to matter. And what matters to me now more is finding the truth, standing with people that are with the truth, and the people that are in my life, and the vibrations or the feelings or the depth that I get from those people. And I was, before I decided to read this book, The Initiates of the Flame, I was listening to Manly P. Hall's lectures, and he had, I still have it right here on my phone, actually. Sometimes these are what I fall asleep to, because they've remastered them. And it was called, what was it called? The Heart of a Child or something like that. I'll find it. Heart of a Child or something. It's where he talks about your childlike nature, the little child in us that never grows up. Manly P. Hall, this is your homework assignment. Manly P. Hall and the little child in us that never grows up. And he talks about karma and how we come into this world as divine beings, and then, you know, we have inner principles and an inner sanctuary, and things are sacred to us as children, but those things, through our own decisions or our own lower natures, get taken away from us, and the way society is and all this other stuff, you know, he talks about. But the coolest thing that I heard was that he asked the audience, he said, do you remember sandcastles? When I was a kid, we didn't have video games, none of this stuff. We had sandcastles. And you would go out and play in a sandcastle, and if you wet the sandcastle a little bit, you could build castles and things like that. And he said, I remember walking outside, and I saw this little girl that was building a sandcastle. And she wet it and built this amazing castle. And he said, you know, that looks really amazing, dear. Too bad it's not going to last. And the child looked at Manly P. Hall and said, that's okay, I'll build another one, because nothing here ever lasts. And she said it with love, not like fear, but love. Everything falls apart here eventually. And he said that girl, he felt it, like he felt that resonance with that girl. That girl was light years and ahead of her karma compared to others. So when you can say something like that and still have that much love in your heart and that much high vibration to you, that's something. But I don't know why I thought of that. I just figured I'd share that with you. And that's why I wanted to read this book. Even though I think this book, The Initiates of the Flame, kind of explains a little bit deeper into the mysteries and makes us less afraid of them, you know, and makes us understand how we can collectively come together on a conscious level and hopefully start to change things a little bit more. Because once we get past all this science stuff and all the formulas that we need to understand, the next level of learning, like Wes Penry says, isn't going to be a hole through the grid. It's going to be all learning about consciousness and how to explore it and a whole other reality that you and I both know is there. We just can't prove yet. Pepe says, have you heard Greer's explanation of the true Bible's real meaning, we are but vessels for the souls and nothing more? I don't think so. I don't think it's been a minute since... Hey, what's up, Gigi? I found all that my favorite eras in my life were all when I was the poorest and just pursuing what I really wanted to do. Amen to that. We'll bounce out on that one. Speaking of which, I might get Bryce or whoever. We're going to be getting into the zombies into the late night. If you can support the Fringe FM, please do so. It's coming to the end of the month. That's when the bills have to be paid to keep us running. Even though YouTube isn't as scary as it used to be, you never know when the censorship hammer might come down. So we got to keep the Fringe FM moving and going. Other than that, I guess we'll see you guys next week. I know I'm forgetting something. I always do, but whatever. Good night, y'all. Sweet dreams. Love you.
One's blights, another's paradise of unpolished gems plucked from the dollar bins. Dust mites are crawling in. Don't put me in the box with them. I need oxygen so I can say my like an extended olive limb. When the public square turned into a coliseum, the plans to opt out the panopticon, buy a plot of land, reduce the Babel Tower to a pile of sand, and find a portal to the time before the father man. It all began, so I'm told, with the sound. Then along came a rogue out to steal the king's crown. Eyes on the summit, trying to become it. Fire in the stomach, pride before the plummet. All the true progress to offset his aims is now empty platitudes and cosmetic change. The priests traded in their black robes for white lab coats, sniffing out dissent from the shadows in the back roads. So it moves and meanders, and warps and distorts when viewed through news cameras. Some open, some doors slam shut. There's bullet holes in armpits. They said that he refused to put his hands up. The rules have changed, it's new terrain. The manufactured tools used to drain the blue running through your veins are billowing smoke like moving trains, and taking aim at every cubit of our souls in the losing game. The world stage is set, engaged in battle with the shadows that the state projects in the fixed game of chess. The loudest ones never practice what they profess, and point fingers when their own demons pose the greatest threat. Malaise in the final days as the fires rage, and melancholia comes in tidal waves. Walk around scrawling my name inside the maze, then crawl into a nautilus shell and hide away. The highest praise couldn't pull a fish from the pits of hell when the self-accusations morph into a prison cell. It'll take more than pennies and